The Trumpet Daily is presented by Stephen Flurry. The program analyzes world news and history from a distinct perspective and compares current events to prophecies found in the Bible. The program also offers free educational publications, including the Trumpet News Magazine and books and booklets. The Trumpet Daily is produced at the Philadelphia Church of God's home campus in Edmond, Oklahoma, and its sister campus in Edstone, England. More information is available at thetrumpet.com.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
It's been said that for 40 years, I've been saying that Iran is a danger to Israel and a danger to the world. That is true. You know who else said that? President Trump. 47 years ago, when the Iranian thugs took over the American embassy, he said how dangerous this regime is. In his first term in office, he didn't need any convincing. He said the Iranian nuclear deal was the worst deal that he'd ever seen, and he walked out of it. Right before his second term, before he was reelected, I went to see him in Mar-a-Lago. The first thing he said to me was, Bibi, we've got to make sure that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. He said that to me. I didn't say it to him. He didn't need any convincing there either. And I want to close these opening remarks with one other fake news, and that is that Israel somehow dragged the U.S. into a conflict with Iran. Does anyone really think that someone can tell President Trump what to do? Come on. President Trump always makes his decisions on what he thinks is good for America, and may I add, I think what is also good for future generations.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, his first English press conference since the beginning of the war with Iran. That was 3 weeks ago, coming up to tomorrow, and a great conference at that. There he is addressing the fake news, as he says, that it was Israel, those dirty Jews, that somehow reeled the United States into this. There's lots of podcasters in the States, right here in America, that are convinced, that this is the Jew. The Jew did this. It's a Jewish problem. The cause is little Israel. And we've played the clip, actually, that he referenced there, going back to the hostage crisis in 1979. And what President Trump was saying then, 47 years ago, and what he did with the JCPOA, and Bibi's right. I mean, he's been sounding the alarm like a rising lion for decades. But, President Trump also has been sounding the alarm as well. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us on today's show. You can get to the live stream of this program at our website, thetrumpet.com, or at the Rumble channel or the YouTube channel. All three platforms carry it live and post the show after the fact as well. Back in August of last year, this is in the Trumpet. Israel's rising lion. Yesterday we talked about how that this is certainly not the age of Winston Churchill, but in this Rising Lion article, my father does talk a fair bit about Winston Churchill and, of course, Prime Minister Netanyahu as well. This is following the summer bombardment of Iran and its nuclear program. It says here, I believe that just as God used the courage of Churchill to save Western civilization, God has used the fighting spirit of Netanyahu to hold off the atomic forces of evil. And so some comparisons, in this area or age that we're in, where there's just a dearth of true leadership. It is quite a compliment to say there's some Churchillian spirit in Bibi Netanyahu. It says Winston Churchill did more than warn about Nazi Germany. He stirred up an offensive fighting spirit in Britain to confront it. Again, we went through some of this yesterday. The offensive is 3 or 4 times as hard as passively enduring from day to day, Churchill once said. It's not easy going on the offensive. It's not easy taking the fight to the enemy, but this is what God expects of true Christians. In the spiritual sense, we've got to put on the whole armor of God, and we've got to take our offensive weapon, the sword of God's word, and use it. It says in Ephesians 6 that we might be able to stand against the devil. We've got to stand strong. We've got to stand firm. We've got to look to Jesus Christ. We've got to follow in his steps. Netanyahu embodies this fighting spirit, my father wrote. He has warned for decades that Iran is close to having a bomb. A major reason they did not get one long ago was Netanyahu's lion-like fighting spirit, even before Operation Rising Lion. He repeatedly confronted Iran's nuclear program. He was sounding the alarm all through the ears of the dear leader, who is trying to pave the way for Iran to get the bomb. And President Trump, for his part, when he came in the first time, he ripped up that agreement. Think about the contrast. We've been emphasizing quite a bit of that this week. Barack Obama sending pallets of cash to Iran. And just contrast that with what President Trump and Bibi have been sending Iran's way these past 3 weeks. It says, look at the state of Israel today, and it's clear that Benjamin Netanyahu is fulfilling that role, that roar of a lion role, in the Jewish state. Yet he too faces terrible opposition, both within Israel and abroad. He's had to stand up under withering attacks, to keep warning and to defend his nation. This man has saved his nation several times. He has an impressive example. He is rather an impressive example. He's one of the few leaders left in Israel with this lion-like quality. We need to draw inspiration from these few examples that you see left in Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu is the rising lion of Israel. This world would be in a much more dangerous place without him. We've talked about, I think there was a story in the news stack. I didn't quite get to it or put it in my news, but what is it? The Wall Street Journal. In nearly 90 Truth Social posts, Donald Trump narrates the war in Iran. So he's just sending out one tweet after, these little sound bites or bits. You know, our news gatherers today, we're just talking about the New York Post articles or the Daily Mail, and how that they're almost an entire article of just one sentence per paragraph. The age of social media. And President Trump, for his part, I mean, he's pretty active, sending out these bits. Here's what's going on. Here's what's going on. And, we've been critical where the mission seems like the purpose seems ambiguous, or maybe it's changing from one day to the next. You don't get that impression when you listen to Bibi's first, news conference in English. And we made the point not that long ago that maybe it would be better not to have statements going on every other hour, and to just see what's happened over a few days, maybe call a press conference, go through the details, remind America of what the purpose is. This is what we're aiming for. These are our objectives. As it is, there's this rush, every day. Send out information. Like I say, you have to give President Trump some credit for having the courage to finally do something after all these years. But you listen to Bibi's press conference, and I mean, they're where we've had some criticism for, you know, the goals, the objectives, and so on. When you listen to Bibi, I mean, he seems pretty clear. It seems pretty clear in his mind what the objective is in this war. Play clip 1.
Our goals are 3. 1, removing the nuclear threat. 2nd, removing the ballistic missile threat, and removing both of these threats before they're buried deep underground and become immune from aerial attack. And 3rd, this means creating the conditions for the Iranian people to grasp their freedom, to control their destiny.
I think this is where, again, you get a clearer perspective. I mean, it wasn't finished, in other words, last summer. The system, the production, all these missiles, it wasn't obliterated. And this man last summer, I mean, he wanted to continue until the job was finished. And for all those who say it's Bibi that's provoking Trump to action, it was actually Donald Trump that, you know, handcuffed Bibi last summer, called it off. That's enough. I mean, we've obliterated everything. So here we are again. And as I say, from President Trump, you're hearing we won, we've accomplished every objective. You know, Hormuz is a little messy, but we look at Europe; they aren't helping us. And now America is trying to find a way out. But here with Bibi, I mean, you can tell that if he was running the show, if he was top dog, and he made it clear in this press conference, he is not. He is happy to play second fiddle to President Trump. But if he was running everything, you can be sure that the lion's spirit would stay the course. That said, I mean, you look at, as courageous as it is for either of these leaders, Bibi, President Trump, the tremendous cost for this war, we went through that earlier this week. Backbreaking debt. Pentagon will ask for more money to fund the Iran campaign. Pete Hegseth told reporters it takes money to kill the bad guys. It takes money to win wars. And is America prepared for this moment, this crisis? Look at what we've been throwing money at for the last many years. I mean, going all the way back to, what was it, the crisis in 2008? And all of that quantitative easing, I think they called it, just printing off trillions and trillions of dollars. Then COVID comes along, trillions and trillions more. I heard a segment, by the way, on the vaccine, just how many peer-reviewed studies there have been. And it's been kind of quietly, nobody reports on it. You know, we were telling you about it when they were rushing to produce this vaccine. It's not even a vaccine. It's poison. And there's all these side effects, deadly in some cases. And that gets, you know, a little bit of coverage. It's very quiet. And they were rushing to get that out there, and it's done more harm than good, much more harm than good, as we said at the time. But just keep spending money, keep trusting the experts, we've got trillions and trillions to spare, don't we? This is from Foreign Affairs. U.S. debt surpasses $39 trillion. We're adding $1 trillion in debt every 5 months. Every 5 months. And now here comes Hegseth saying, you know, we need more money if we're going to win this war with Iran. He says, so we're going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded for what's been done, for what we may have to do in the future. And so more astronomical debt figures. You can expect it every few months. Just add another trillion. Almost $40 trillion. $40 trillion in debt. Spending more on interest on the debt payment than we are on defense. And meanwhile, you've got this radical Islamist regime cracking down hard on its people. You may have seen the headline yesterday, killing that teenage wrestler for being part of the protests. What are we looking at now? 37,000 Iranians have been slaughtered, even as these British diplomats and ruling class in the UK are celebrating and partying the establishment of the Islamic State, the state of Iran, the revolution in '79. The Wall Street Journal says we know it's fashionable on the left and even in some parts of the right these days to think that President Trump is the enemy in the Iran war. So forgive us for pointing out the character of the actual enemy our troops are fighting. And it talks about this wrestler. It was reported on at CBS News, clip 12.
CBS News has learned of a young Iranian wrestler who was executed in Iran today. What do you know about this young man?
His name is Salah Mohammadi. He's 19 years old. He was on the Iranian national wrestling team and a rising star. He was executed along with 2 other young men, and this happened at the Qom Central Prison. And there's an actual specific charge, which is interesting, which is called Moharabe, which means waging war against God, which really shows what the regime thinks of people that go against them. But we're also hearing from these groups, these human rights groups, that executions are on the rise, and obviously most often without a fair trial.
And it's probably a sign that the regime is desperate to maintain control of its own population, because it's obviously being hit hard by the war effort coming from Israel and the United States. All of their leaders taken out for the most part, and so much of the arsenal, Iran's arsenal, taken out as well. So the crackdown continues. And yet, I don't know if Tucker's had anything to say yet about this young wrestler, but there's certainly plenty of commentary among Western liberals and conservatives these days saying that it's Trump or it's Bibi. They're the problem. They're provoking. They're provoking, Iran. And Iran, really, they would have just been quiet. They weren't causing any harm. They were killing their own people. They were slaughtering their own people. Still are. And yet that just gets covered up, conveniently enough, by so many of the commentators that are really, in their heart of hearts, they're rooting for the other side. Play that. This is from CNN's Christiane Amanpour, clip 16.
Are you concerned about them going even further off the reservation, not just conducting a military campaign, but one that could be, could have, like the whole business of we will take no quarter, which means not saving and perhaps executing prisoners?
Oh, sure. I mean, this crowd does not comply with any guidelines or rules or laws. All you need to do is once again reflect on what the president himself said when he was asked about when the war is going to end. And his response was, well, when I say it's going to end. And they said, well, how do you know that? And he said, well, my instincts will tell me when it's ready to end. Are you kidding me? No president has ever done anything like this. One of the things that is going to occur here and the results, consequences of what's going on is that we are manufacturing a whole new generation of young terrorists in the Middle East. That's just one consequence of what's coming here.
We are manufacturing terrorists in the Middle East. You kill terrorists, and you're the problem. Can you imagine anything like this coming from Winston Churchill? In other words, just sit back, let October 7 happen, let, barracks get bombed or whatever other attacks. There have been a long line of them. 47 years they've been at war. Iran's been at war with the United States and Israel, the great Satan and the little Satan. And you've got people, and it's not like it's limited to Hegel and Amanpour. You hear it on the right now. It's stunning. The weakness, the level of appeasement. Just act nice. Make sure you sit down for dialogue, and everything works out. You can actually befriend the terrorists. The Australian Prime Minister, he's definitely reached out to terrorists. He's reached out to the Muslim community. I think this footage is from just yesterday or today. He went into a mosque. He wanted to chat it up. And how do you think the religious observers in that mosque, how do you think they received Albanese? This is clip 14.
Please sit down, please. Boys, sit down, please sit down. All of you sit down, please. Sit down, stop recording, sit down.
We invited politicians to make us feel good about ourselves, but never genuinely had a robust and effective communication with them about the issues affecting our community.
They shouted him down, basically, and you didn't see the tail end of it, where he had to usher himself out through the back door. They wanted no part of dialogue with the Australian Prime Minister because, well, you know, he's responsible for genocide. He's the one guilty of mass murder. And so we continue to reach out, like I covered yesterday on the show, trying to appease, trying to be nice, welcoming them right into your own country, opening the door to millions and millions of them. And they come in, and what do? They spew out Jew hatred and hatred for their home country. It's from LinkedIn last year. Every Australian has the right to worship openly and proudly. I visited Australian Islamic House in Edmondson Park in Sydney. I think this is a quote from Albanese. Reuters, last year Albanese appointed a special envoy to combat Islamophobia. The post didn't exist before. Albanese created it. I mean, he's bent over backwards to try to eliminate hatred for Muslims. Not Jews, but Muslims. That's where we're focused. Play this from, this is from September of last year, clip 15.
We must stamp out the hate, fear and prejudice that drives Islamophobia and division in our society.
Today marks a critical and long-awaited moment for the Muslim communities of Australia. This is a historic opportunity. It is a moment where we decide who we are as a country and whether we are prepared to take the necessary steps to ensure that every person in Australia, regardless of faith, ethnicity or background, is safe, valued and treated with dignity. The reality is that Islamophobia in Australia has been persistent, at times ignored and other times denied, but never fully addressed. We have seen opposition to mosques and Islamic schools turn to violent vandalism and assaults on Muslim properties. We have seen public abuse, graffiti and assaults of Muslims. We have seen Muslim women and children targeted, not for what they have done, but for who they are and what they wear.
Yeah, it's all over the place. That was, 2-3 months before the Bondi Beach shooting. How many people killed, massacred in that? 15 people. The father-son tandem, Muslims, firing away, murdering Jews. And yeah, that's what you get a steady diet of in Australia. To make sure we're fighting against Islamophobia. Meanwhile, we're just inviting them into our cities. In the UK, there's a story this morning about taking over Trafalgar Square, I think on Monday. Another Muslim protest and or support, demonstration for some kind of violence, some kind of insurrection. And we've invited it into the United States as well. Sky News Australia had some commentary on this strategy of appeasement, clip 13.
Have you woken up yet? Have you joined the dots? Have you seen what's staring us all in the face, plain as day? No? Well, let me spell it out for you. It's called appeasement, and it's one of the ugliest and most dangerous traits known to any society. Governments and nations that head down the path of constant appeasement end up in very unpleasant places indeed. Appeasement can take many forms. Appeasing a foreign aggressive nation or power is one form. Most famously, the famous image of Chamberlain returning from Munich with a worthless piece of paper has come to define the stupidity and danger of the appeasing politician. In recent years, the most obvious case of global appeasement has been the constant appeasement by the West of the Nazi-style government of the Ayatollahs. The driving philosophy of these medieval lunatics was to bring about an apocalypse that would make them all martyrs or some such. And what did the West do? For decades, we appeased them. One US government after another simply kicked the can down the road.
The policy of appeasement. You heard it from Amanpour and Chuck Hagel. He was in with Obama. I forget which post he had. But high up, they believe. They're disciples of Chamberlain, for sure. They do not dwell in the age of Winston Churchill. And so when a leader does step up and show some lion-like courage, it's worth drawing some attention to, just like we did in the August issue of the Trumpet last year. Here's more from Bibi's first English press conference since the beginning of this Iran war, clip 4.
I don't think any two leaders have been as coordinated as President Trump and I. He's the leader. I'm, his ally. America is the leader. Israel is, as the National Security Memorandum described us, I think a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I think, something like that. They called Israel the model ally. That's how they call it, the model ally. It's not a superpower, but in practice, President Trump and I speak regularly. We discuss things, our staffs discuss things, our militaries are in close coordination as never before. But ultimately, President Trump makes his own decisions. And do I respect them? Yes, I do.
A fair bit of humility. I was just searching this verse that I used in class this morning. It's found in the Gospel of John, John 12, where Jesus, this is in the final week of his ministry, and he's opening up to his disciples and even others that were there listening to some of the final instructions he was giving to his students. He said in John 12, "My soul is troubled. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour, but for this cause came I unto this hour." And you know about how he prayed at Gethsemane the night before his crucifixion. I mean, he opened up to his students and said, this is troubling. I had a definition for that Greek word. It means to disturb or agitate. It conveys a sense of inner turmoil or emotional disturbance. This is Jesus Christ, the real Christ of the Bible, telling his disciples, look, it's going to be difficult. And only God and his power is going to get me through this. I mean, that takes some humility on the part of Jesus Christ, the greatest leader this world has ever seen, to open himself up like that and to say, look, this is the struggle. This is the battle. Like Hebrews 4 says, he was tempted in all points like as we are, yet without sin. He totally trusted in God. He put his reliance 100% on God. Now, that no leader in the world today rises to that level. But when you see one say, look, he's the leader in this, you don't hear world leaders saying that often. Happily taking a back seat to the President of the United States. I'm sure Bibi has his share of vanity just like every other person on earth. We all have it. We all have to fight it. But here he's showing some lion-like courage, and with so many commentators, I mean, he's the problem. He's the one that comes under attack, more so than the new Ayatollah. They just killed a 19-year-old wrestler with a bright future ahead of him because he was protesting the radical Islamist ideology in Iran. And British diplomats are celebrating that state, the #1 state sponsor of terror. It's like I've been saying all week. If anything would rally the world around President Trump and Bibi, you would think it would be this effort. But no, actually, it's serving as motivation for the world to align itself against Trump and against the Jews. Here's more from Bibi today, clip 5.
President Trump said today he did not like the Israeli strike on the Iranian gas fields. My question to you, was the president aware of Israel striking that gas field? Did you approve it? And please, if you may, do you see any signs that the Iranian regime is collapsing? And what assurances do you give the Israeli public that if it does stand on its feet, we will not see another wave of a war with Iran in maybe 5 or 10 years?
Well, I'll say two things. Fact number one, Israel acted alone against the Slawiya gas compound. Fact number two, President Trump asked us to hold off on future attacks, and we're holding out.
He's second fiddle. He's taking direction from President Trump. I talked yesterday about the Manasseh-Ephraim brotherhood unraveling. And we know it's prophesied to happen with Manasseh and Judah as well, with all three of them. But here you're seeing the brotherhood, as much friction as there might be from time to time. It's holding firm to this point. And you do see some qualities in both men to stand up to this evil, violent menace, murdering teenage soccer players, or I guess wrestlers, probably soccer players too. Here's more from the press conference, clip 6.
But I think if people are honest, if leaders are honest, they would understand that we're not only fighting our fight, we're fighting their fight. I speak to dozens of world leaders. Dozens. They all know that. And privately, they all say that. They say that privately, but I say it publicly. The world owes a debt of deep indebtedness to President Trump for leading this effort to safeguard our future.
But what does the world do instead? It attacks little Israel and it attacks President Trump. And as I've said so many times on this program in recent months, what's the spirit behind that? You look at chapter 10 in the Key of David book, the new and expanded version of that book, and you see the source of Jew hatred, of this unhinged, deranged bigotry. And you look at some of the numbers, and if you spew that sort of thing, you're probably going to get a bigger audience in the world we live in today. It's all over the place. Mr. Armstrong, this is from, I think, his radio program. This is clip 21, but it's from his radio program, The World Tomorrow, going back to, I think, the 1960s, 21.
I don't know why we have to have such bigotry and race hatreds and things of that sort. I want to tell you that people that have that are not Christian. The very first thing in Christianity above everything else is having love in our hearts for other people. And I want to say to you, my friends, I don't care who you are, and I don't care if this makes you angry. If you do not have love in your heart for the Jewish people, if you have hatred in your heart for the Jewish people today, you're not a Christian. I don't care how much you profess. Jesus Christ told us we have to learn to even love our own enemies. And I don't think you have a lot of Jews that are your enemies either. There's a lot of false accusations going around saying that the Jews control the world and they've got a stranglehold on all of us and all that kind of poppycock. You know, it's about time it's branded for what it is.
He's well ahead of his time, isn't he? That was from, 60 years ago? A lot of poppycock, he said. In his autobiography, he warned about people who allow themselves to be hooked on the insidious, poisonous drug of anti-Semitism and hatred for Jews. There's a lot of people hooked on that drug today. It doesn't matter what Bibi says or doesn't say. He's heading up the Jewish state, and the Jews are the problem. How do you explain this kind of derangement? Jesus said salvation is of the Jews. It's through the Jews. Jesus himself was a Jew. True Christians are spiritual Jews. And the Bible has a lot of praise, even for the physical Jews. They're not perfect, and they've brought some problems on themselves, like every nation has, especially all these Israelite nations, Judah, Ephraim, Manasseh. In so many cases, we've invited the problems in. I mean, go back and read Judges 2, verses 1 through 3. I read them to you yesterday. That's been Israel's way. Just invite the foreign influence, all the idolatry, the pagan practices, just invite them in. And God says they become a snare, a thorn, because we can't manage to keep ourselves separate. That's right. Let's go into the mosque. We've got to go in and make sure they know we love them. And then they shout you down. To show, could they show a little appreciation for Australia being their home country, where they can have the freedom to worship the way that they do? Sure seems like a lot of them aren't appreciative. A lot of them have an axe to grind. How could that be in a place of worship? And listen, I'm not singling out one religion. Catholic Europe is about to go against radical Islam like a whirlwind. Mr. Armstrong said in Mystery of the Ages that when you understand the problem with religion, then you'll understand why there's so much evil in this world. Religion is the problem. I'm just trying to help us see where the original source is of Jew hatred, all these conspiracies, all of this derangement. It's as old as time. It's as old as the Jewish race, at least. Hooked on the insidious, poisonous drug of anti-Semitism. This article from The Hollywood Reporter. Candace Owens' explosive growth is rewiring right-wing media and putting Megyn Kelly in a bind. What matters in this context is not simply the content itself, but the scale at which it is consumed. With an audience estimated at roughly 24 million across platforms, Candace Owens operates at a level of reach that forces both competitors and peers to respond or seek to emulate her. Owens' rise is not pulling everyone in one direction so much as forcing a sort of a sorting mechanism with conservative media. On one side is a loose, personality-driven ecosystem. Owens, Tucker, Steve Bannon, and at times Kelly, where provocation, skepticism of institutional authority, conspiracy mongering, and boundary testing rhetoric are central to audience growth. On the other is a more traditional faction, Ben Shapiro, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, Turning Point USA. That while firmly right-wing has drawn a clear line against overt conspiracy theories and anti-Semitic framing. So I don't know how you explain those numbers. You hear some of the things that Candace Owens is saying these days. Same with Tucker. And yet they enjoy massive audiences. Doug Murray had a piece. Tucker Carlson, the opposition party in Britain, In 1932, he formed the British Union of Fascists, a party that wanted to introduce Hitler's policies to the UK and form an alliance with Nazi Germany. Mosley, that's the guy he's talking about, was a traitor to his country. He married his second wife, like him, a fascist and friend of Hitler. They married in a small private ceremony at the home of Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels. It says one of the only other people to attend the wedding was Adolf Hitler, who gifted the newlyweds a silver-framed photograph of himself. Now listen to what Tucker Carlson had to say about, not this guy, but about that evil Winston Churchill. Oh yeah, he was the problem. Clip 22.
Winston Churchill, who I know we're required to deify, presided over the imprisonment of his opposition party during the entire length of the war, and their families and their wives. They were rotting in prison away from their little kids, in some cases their infants. And their crime was being the opposition party and being disloyal and unpatriotic. They weren't. The opposition party was led by a First World War hero who fought not just as, a pilot in the sky, but and in the trenches, like one of the great war heroes, former member of parliament the country ever produced.
Yeah. Leaving out a lot of important facts as he goes on about revising the history and portraying Churchill, of course, because he had a lion-like spirit as well, because he fought against the spread of tyranny. You think about what Europe or the United States even would look like were it not for Winston Churchill. The contempt that these commentators have. It's like I said yesterday. I mean, you go through that cold open that we showed, and I mean, even in the way commentators covered news of the war, so different. It was actually pro-Britain or pro-America. It's not like that today. And so, if someone comes along today and shows some lion-like character, well, you see why they come under fire. You see why it arouses so much hatred. I think we left off with clip 7. This is from Bibi's press conference today.
Want a transitional leader that will have a transition. You don't want to replace one Ayatollah with another. You don't want to replace Hitler with Himmler. So I think the question is, will the conditions be created for such a change? I think it's too early to say. And I think in the final account, as I said, it's up to the Iranian people to show that, to choose the moment and to rise to the moment. We can create the conditions, but they have to, they have to explode those conditions at a certain point. It is often said that you can't do revolutions from the air. That is true. You can't do it only from the air. You can do a lot of things from the air, and we're doing, but there has to be a ground component as well. There are many possibilities for this ground component, and I take the liberty of not sharing with you all those possibilities.
For obvious reasons, because so many in the Trump camp are firmly opposed to any kind of ground operation. But there he is acknowledging what should be obvious. We can't bring on regime change unless there's some kind of ground operation. It's just not going to happen. You can't bring regime change with just an aerial bombardment alone. Now, again, that's not a popular message, but it's true. He's telling the truth. I told you yesterday about the many unpopular messages or positions that Winston Churchill took, just standing on principle. Standing on his convictions. Never mind what the political winds were communicating that given day. Listen to this one from today as well, clip 8.
There's always a danger in acting. But in conditions of existential threats, there's a much greater danger in not acting. What do you think would have happened if America did not act now? There's enormous risk in not acting, much greater risk than acting. And if you think that the oil markets are in trouble today, think of Iran with nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them. Then think of the blackmail that you would endure.
Just think for a moment how unusual it is to hear leadership like this. It's very rare. You know, there you probably saw the exchange that President Trump had yesterday with this Japanese reporter who asked him, well, how come you didn't tell your allies in Europe and in Asia that you were going to strike Iran? And President Trump said, well, we wanted to maintain the element of surprise. You guys should know something about that. Why didn't you tell us about Pearl Harbor? I don't think the Japanese press corps I don't think they found it that funny. A lot of people online did. Look at just the way the mindset is so different today, and the pressure on Western leaders, whether in America or in Judah, to just go along with the appeasement crowd, to revise the history, make Churchill the bad guy, make him the evil one, make Bibi the evil guy. Forget about the mullahs, and forget about killing the 19-year-old wrestler. This is the world we're living in. It's upside down. Evil is called good, and good is called evil. Our moral compass has been shattered. There's not that many leaders left that see what's actually happening and call it for what it is. Bibi's one of the few remaining, maybe the only remaining. It's more risky not to act than it is to act. Of course, there's always an element of risk with taking action. But you listen to the appeasing crowd, the appeasers. It's as if no action comes with no risk. Well, then you walk into the mosque expecting a nice, sweet dialogue, and what do you get? You get the spirit of murder instead. Just like we saw at the Bondi Beach massacre. Islamophobia, that's what so many of our Western leaders are most concerned about. They're starting new branches of government for it. And meanwhile, look at what's actually happening. Time and time again. Some would say that Israel didn't take action soon enough before October 7. And Bibi was presiding over that. Then was October 7 a risk? For Israel to just not worry so much about threats across the border and all of this, activity around the security fence and, partying at the Nova Festival, because surely they're not going to come over to our communities. Was that mindset risky? Were you risking something dangerous and terrible happening by doing nothing? Well, they certainly were. What about before 9/11? What about all the commentary we've had since about the attack after the attack against Westerners, Americans, from radical Islamists that happened all through the 1990s? They actually went after the Twin Towers. What was it, 93? They had a trial run. And then both towers came down 7-8 years later. And yet here we are still, completely unprepared for it. We took no action. We took no action for a decade. And that turned out to be risky for New York City, for the Pentagon, for those 4 airplanes. Weakness, appeasement, it never works. It never works. Listen to clip 9.
In this world, it's not enough to be moral. It's not enough to be just. It's not enough to be right. We have to be strong. We have to be armed. We have to be more powerful than the barbarians, or they will not be merely at the gate. They'll crash our gates and destroy our societies. That's what Israel is doing now with the United States.
And that's a message that you hear from exactly no one except him. Again, even President Trump hasn't come out with this kind of clarity. The barbarians are at the gate. So what do? What are our choices? Play clip 10.
I think you have to, in war, you have to grit your teeth. Churchill said that democracies suffer from the slumber of democracies, as he called it. And they only wake up, he said, they may wake up only when they hear the gong, the jarring gong of danger, is the way he put it. Well, you're hearing the jarring gong of danger. The jarring gong of danger is Iran gets nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. That's not a jarring gong. That is an apocalypse. Don't let it happen. And the function of leaders is to stand and tell people the truth, even when things are uncomfortable. That's what you have to do. And you don't always see the danger in time. But leaders are tasked with the task of seeing danger in time and acting on it.
See the danger and do things that are uncomfortable. Leadership. One final clip from his press conference, clip 11.
As far as oil prices rising, spikes, you know what a spike is? You know what a spike is? It goes up and goes down. The Americans are working very hard, and we're trying to help them in every way that we can, to open the straits of Hormuz. And if they succeed, which I think they will, then oil prices will come down. But if you say, all right, I'm suffering right now, and people are, then I shouldn't do anything. I just succumb to the blackmail, let Iran get on with it, let them develop nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles to deliver them to New York and Los Angeles. You're going to be blackmailed in ways that you can't even imagine.
That's Bibi's first English press conference since the start of this war with Iran. 3 weeks in. Let us hope that we don't have to wait another 3 weeks to hear one again in English. That's all we have time for on today's show, the fastest moving hour in broadcasting. You're listening to Stephen Fleury. This is the Trumpet Daily. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining us all week. And we'll see you next time.
Israel escalated its war with Hezbollah terrorists with a new ground incursion into Lebanon starting March 15th. The invasion encompasses a broad area and is combined with continued airstrikes on Beirut and other Lebanese targets, all aimed at routing Iran-sponsored Hezbollah. The scale of the conflict is huge. 1/5 of Lebanon's population, or 1 million people, are estimated to have been displaced. The Lebanese government is not an active party in the conflict and has blamed Hezbollah more than Israel for the current escalation. Based on prophecies in Daniel 11 and Psalm 83, Trumpet Editor-in-Chief Gerald Fleury has predicted that Hezbollah and by extension Iran would lose its hold on Lebanon and the country would align itself more closely with Europe. This was partly fulfilled through events over the past 2 years, but watch for the current conflict to contribute to a more pronounced shift in allegiance. To learn more, read Prophecy Fulfilled in Lebanon. Serbia has purchased Chinese supersonic CM-400 air-to-ground missiles and is preparing for war, President Aleksandar Vučić said last week. The missiles were reportedly first used in combat by Pakistan last year, and Serbia is the first foreign country after Pakistan to buy them. Vučić said that Serbia plans to buy more Chinese missiles, and that Serbia's arsenal includes weapons that they do not show. The purchase comes in response to a military cooperation agreement Croatia, Albania, and Kosovo signed almost a year ago. Serbia has been the largest arms importer in the Western Balkans for years. In January, Vučić announced plans to double Serbia's military capacity within the next 18 months. Serbia also reintroduced conscription this year, after having suspended it for more than a decade. Croatia, which has also reintroduced conscription, responded to Serbia's missile purchase by calling it a threat to regional stability and a signal of an arms race. But as the Balkans again become volatile, the most important nation to watch is Germany. To learn more about Germany's ambitions in this region, read Germany's conquest of the Balkans. Europe's biggest weapons maker is profiting from the Iran war. On March 11th, Rheinmetall CEO Armin Papperger said the war has created opportunities for his company. Rheinmetall's drone defense weapons are inexpensive compared to the alternatives. According to German newspaper Die Welt, in the first 3 days of the war, the US and its allies launched around 2,000 missiles, costing $2 million each on average. Shooting down a drone using Rheinmetall's Sky Ranger system costs just $4,000. Rheinmetall is becoming Europe's main supplier for a range of military equipment needs, ranging from ammunition to warships. It expects 2026 sales to reach $17 billion, up 40% from last year, which was 29% more than 2024. The German government has also used supplies of high-value weapons from Rheinmetall and other German manufacturers as a foreign policy tool to extend its influence in areas like the Middle East. Rheinmetall's success and expansion should raise concern. To learn more, read Trumpet Editor-in-Chief Gerald Flurry's article, Rising from the Underground. To learn more about current world news and how it relates to Bible prophecy, please visit thetrumpet.com.